box. Mike Tyson understood defense. He understood moving his head.
Yeah,
Deontay Wilder, I know he's 40 now, but people who know boxing, he can't fight. All he has is that right hand, right?
Well, his whole fight is setting up that one punch.
Right.
And everybody in boxing will tell you, you need a bigger strategy than that.
Right.
A better strategy. The problem is this has worked for Deontay Wilder 40 times.
Yep.
41 times, right?
43 times.
It was 43 times.
Oh, 42 in the draw. So
40, So right. It's basically worked for him every time. So it's hard to see this same tactic constantly work and then be told this is a bad tactic.
Right.
Even myself, I thought it's a bad tactic. It's not supposed to work. But it's been working. Everybody has been not, including Tyson Fury, if only for 4 seconds, has even been knocked out by this big right hand. So,
but that's something though. So when they tell you this guy's got the most devastating right hand you've ever seen, and you took it twice in the first fight, went down and got back up, are you afraid of that right hand anymore? You already know that you can take it.
I mean, that's the thing is, whether he's afraid of it or not, he knows he can take it and get up.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure he took it a few times and it didn't take him down.
Right.
You know? So seeing that, with all that being said, I could see from a guy who's basically undefeated, who's not lost, and then he does this crazy thing getting into the ring. I can kind of see mentally how he could think, man, it's no way that guy hit me so hard. It must be the costume. It has to be. You know what I'm saying? There's no way this guy hit me so hard that my legs don't work anymore.
Like
it has
Deontay
to be something
Wilder
else,
was also
you know?
talking about like he felt like the ref was unfair because the ref was like letting him take shots and he warned him, but he didn't. This is why I feel like Deontay Wilder actually hasn't seen the fight. Because if anybody who watched the fight, there was a very clear moment in there where Kenny Bayless separated them both.
Yeah.
After a clinch. And he walked over to Wilder and he said, "This is your warning. Next time it's 1 point." He turned around and went to Fury and said, "This is your warning. Next time it's 1 point. I'm not having this."
Yeah.
And they went back to fighting. So I feel like Deontay Wilder hasn't even actually saw the fight. And there's something reading the article today is that a lot of people were giving Wilder like, okay, you got a busted eardrum so we can understand like why you're wobbly. It's going to mess up your equilibrium. No, the report came out that it wasn't a busted eardrum. It was a cut on his ear. His eardrum was fine. So for you to think, which makes me, you're going to tell me that Tyson Fury never hurt you, right? And if and the busted eardrum is being hurt, but it's an accident that happens when a fight. So you understand that the guy is stumbling around and can't keep his ear. But when you tell me that your eardrum is fine, and now you're stumbling around the ring, you can't defend yourself, and you look like you have no idea where you're at, you're hurt.
You're definitely hurt.
You're hurt.
And I think 100% I believe his legs are gone because he was holding up a 270-pound guy.
Yes.
The way his legs were wobbling is one of two things. He either got rocked from a punch or he was squatting.
Right.
And the only thing close to squatting is trying to hold up that gypsy in the ring in the middle of a boxing match. So all excuses aside, at some point, we have to come to the conclusion that Tyson Fury just beat the brakes off of Deontay Wilder. And you just got to accept that. Like, that's what happened. You can argue and say, oh, well, you know, Tyson Fury did this illegal move and he did some dirty stuff or whatever. I mean, honestly, that's just a part of boxing. Everybody is doing something different, whether it's purposefully or on accident or just, you know, they're trying to get an edge. Everybody who gets into a boxing ring is trying to win by any means necessary, which is why the ref gave both of them a point or threatened to give both of them a point at some point in the fight. And so, I mean, I feel like I would feel so much better if Deontay Wilder just came out and was like, look, the better man won the fight. We got the rematch clause. We're going to work on some stuff. And I'm going to give you guys the greatest fight you ever seen in your life in 3-4 months, whenever that may be.
So probably about 4 or 5 months ago, like right after they announced this fight was going to happen, I was driving Lyft and I picked up Antonio Vargas.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked up him and his son. His son is a fighter now. He's 19 years old. So I picked him up and we're talking about boxing. And I asked him, I said, who's going to win the Deontay Wilder fight or the Tyson Fury fight? And he said that Deontay Wilder is the most beatable champion there ever was. He said, all you have to do is walk right through him, put your nose on his chest, and just start swinging. He won't be able to land that right hook. And that's exactly what Tyson Fury did, right? He just walked straight into him.
Yeah.
He made him throw that right hand, going backwards, which released, so there's not as much power on it.
Right.
And he just stood in his face, and Wilder didn't know how to act because he's so used to people being afraid of him in the ring.
It's so funny, too, because even when Tyson Fury said he's going to do that, I was like, that sounds good on paper, man, but you're risking a lot,
Okay.
But he put that weight on. The other thing about Tyson Fury is he's not cut. He's not ripped. You look at this guy, and you really feel like, other than his height, if I see him just just walking down the strip, I'm like, this guy can't fight. I'm not picking this guy. There's nothing about him that says like big, scary champion. No. You know what I mean? Like this guy's
a lovable
legend.
guy. His
personality.
I'm a big
everything.
Tyson Fury fan for a lot of reasons, and I was telling everybody who would listen last week that he's going to fight. I think he has the most heart in all of boxing. I think he's been very honest about his life journey and the depression and the anxiety and the real life stuff that he goes through and the pressure of trying to be the champion and taking 2 years off because he just didn't know how to deal with life and the pressures and going through the depression and the anxiety and all that stuff, that whole weight of the world being put on him and what it did for him. I think that's really real. And when you get a person who has the heart like he does, because he refuses to go down. He doesn't like to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And his background, where he's always been fighting his entire life for respect.
Right.
To me, it's really hard to beat a person like that in the ring.
Yeah.
Because they don't know quit.
He has all the qualities of a person that's just hard to beat, man.
Right.
I mean, I watch him, and it's very rare to see boxers do this, which all of them should do. But most boxers, when a punch comes their way, whether they're blocking it or dodging it, bobbing, weaving, whatever, they close their eyes. There's so many clips that you can find of like Ali, Floyd Mayweather, Roy Jones Jr., a handful of boxers who are just known for their speed, in a sense, are moving and dodging punches with their eyes wide open. And Tyson Fury is one of those guys who, when you watch some of the replays, he's never not looking at you. And a guy like that, it says so much for just his defense and his speed. And you're talking about this guy came in the ring at 270-something pounds, man, and he was not ripped. He was flabby, bro. I mean, he's shaking his arms, looking. You know what I mean? Like he's a candidate for liposuction all the way around. Like this guy, man. But that doesn't matter with the sweet science, man. He fought this guy once. He got knocked down twice. He actually got knocked out and got up.
No,
and this is coming off of basically him having the worst time of his life. He basically hadn't been back, too long from from quitting, from depression and all of that, and getting off drugs and everything. And he fought Deontay Wilder basically, I guess, without even a full training camp. And so now he's had a whole time to just train for him, and it looked like it, man. So, man, props to Tyson Fury for a great win. I think both of these guys, their personalities, though, are so good for boxing right now, especially the heavyweight division. I really wanted Wilder to win because I feel like heavyweight boxing is better when an American has the belts. But if there was ever a person who could keep you interested, it's probably
Tyson Fury's adopted America as his home.
Well, I think, and that's the thing is like if you're going to give it to somebody who's from somewhere else,
I think he lives here. Is here in Vegas.
He might. I know there were a lot of people from the UK here over the weekend for the fight.
And he's announced that he's going to fight Joshua next. So Wilder's going to have to wait. He's going to fight Joshua next, which is going to be a huge fight. My favorite part of the whole fight weekend though was on Sunday. I was playing poker. Is an older Jewish white guy. It's awesome. He's just so distraught that he lost $1,500 on Deontay Wilder. Because there's just no way that flabby white guy was going to beat a black guy in the ring. He's like, white guys don't beat black guys in heavyweight fights. Apparently, he's never heard of the Klitschko brothers and their last
10 years
dominance. Again, make sure you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, The Negro Please, and please log on and subscribe to our YouTube page. Your boy Jim Jones. Yeah. Apparently, he said this a while ago, and then it's become a debate, and then somehow it came back up. So Jim Jones seems to think that being a rapper is more dangerous than being a soldier in war.
Yeah.
I don't know how to. and Jim makes some good points, except for the fact that his points are, well, you grew up in the hood. People are always going to be shooting at you and taking shots at you. You never know who you can trust, and blah blah blah. Problem with that is that it has nothing to do with being a rapper, right?
Right.
Like he says, you
Right.
can't go back to your old neighborhood, but again, that's just not because you're a rapper. It's because you're successful and you came out of the hood and you went on to better things. Like you live in a big cushy mansion that we see all the time on what show? He's on one of those Real Housewives
Love
or
and
something.
Hip Hop or
Love
something
and
like
Hip Hop.
that. Is
Yeah,
that it? Okay.
yeah. I try not to watch those things because they drive me
yeah.
crazy. You live in a big house with fancy women and cars and stuff like that. You're talking about guys that didn't want to go to war, right? Like they joined the military, they ended up in war, and now they're sleeping in Iraq or Afghanistan with bombs going off around them. I don't understand how you think that that's even comparable.
I get his point of some of the examples he used talking about, just last week another rapper got killed. Past couple weeks, a couple rappers been shot at, stuff like that. But like you said, these things are not exclusive to being a rapper, and that's where my beef is. It's you can't take a situation that you put yourself in and compare it to the situation that a soldier is in. Those are two completely different situations, and to say that one is more dangerous than the other is an insult, I believe, to our soldiers. Now, I'm not the biggest, bleeding heart for military and veterans because I believe that they are blindly going to fight wars that are basically about money that our government has put them up to. I'm not a believer that our soldiers are out there just literally fighting for our freedoms. If they stop fighting today, we still have all the same freedoms that we have. This is not 1864. We are not trying to get rid of the British or whoever might want to conquer America. That being said, though, when these guys go on the battlefield, man, they don't jump in their Ferraris and drive home at the end of the night.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Right.
these guys are putting their lives on the line for our country, be it as it may. Whether I like it, whether I approve of what they're fighting for or how they're fighting, they are still fighting for us. I mean, and as far as I'm concerned, we're the good guys. We're not perfect. We do bad things. Like Jim Jones said, there are times where we out there and civilians get killed. That's war. That happens. But I'm thankful that our soldiers are making sure that those things happen away from the actual homeland, right? They're happening over there and not over here.
Right.
So with that being said, I'm not trying to compare who the soldiers fight to anything that's happening here in America, especially when as a rapper, you have the ability to control your environment more than the average person.
Right.
Who has to go clock in, be in an environment that's controlled by a boss and someone else, and then they have to clock out and leave. As a rapper, you get to pick and choose when and where you go on tour.
Right.
You get to pick and choose where you live at, especially someone like a Jim Jones who's been in the business for long enough, has amassed enough money to live and be wherever he wants to be, and to do this thing called hiring bodyguards and security to protect him if he's in that much danger. And my question is this: why are rappers in so much danger? I get you come from the hood, but so do thousands and millions of other people come from the hood.
Right.
And we manage to make it out of the hood and not be in danger. And I can't afford security. Like, you understand what I'm saying?
That's a good point. Like,
So again, I get his points that, it is tough when you grew up in this neighborhood and you make it out and you want to go back and you have this fear that, like, oh, someone might rob me. These things may or may not happen. But then at the same time, you're choosing to go there, though. You're choosing to go back. I know a lot of people who made it out the hood
and don't ever go back.
And they never go back, right?
No, they don't. I know people who really don't even like to go to their mama's house because their mama wants. They've tried to move their mom in with them or whatever, but their mom wants. That's her house. She's been there since forever, and she want to stay in her house. I have friends who really resent going to their parents' house because they don't want to be in that neighborhood anymore.
Here's my challenge to every rapper. If you have a problem, now look, there's always going to be scoundrels. There's always going to be goons and thugs. They're going to be everywhere. They're going to find you whether you go back to the hood or not. Here's my thing. You made it out of the hood and you become this successful that now you're a target. Why haven't you sewn back into your hood to the point that you are now respected and they welcome you back?
Do the Nipsey Hussle?
Exactly.
Right?
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Like look at the Nipsey Hussle, and Nipsey Hussle is probably a perfect example for both sides of the argument.
Right.
Right. You
Right.
know what I mean? Because what he did, he was so respected that everybody's saying the guy who killed Nipsey Hussle, he can't walk the streets no more.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like,
Nipsey Hussle was so respected because of all the things he did. Nipsey could go anywhere and do anything.
Yep.
But the guy who killed him, apparently this guy was close enough to him, though, that it didn't matter if Nipsey stayed in the hood or was out of the hood. This dude was going to find him and do whatever to him, right? So there is a danger there. But if you have your ducks in a row, if you have things in order, I think if Nipsey actually had some armed security with him at that point, he might still be alive. It's hard to say, and I hate to, like, you know what I mean, bring hypothetical situations up, but at the same time, I mean, this is what you have, and you have to know that situation, though, was not a direct effect of Nipsey Hussle being a rapper.
Right.
You understand?
That's the problem is, like, when you say this stuff, right, I have to wonder how much of this did you create on your own? Right. Because I know people, like, people who, I use the word graduated from the hood, right? Like, they put in their work and they're gone and off, but they don't want to go back, but they can, right? They know all the same people in the hood that the rappers knew, like, but they can't go back, right? Nobody bothers them when they see them rolling up, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And they might even, like, get a nod, you know what I mean? Like, when they walk by the guys in the street, like, hey, man, what's up? I haven't seen you in a while. You know, I'm doing my thing. You know what I mean? Like, so did you create the situation to why you can't go back to the hood? Did you create the situation while you were there?
Exactly.
And I know there are a lot of people who were killed innocently, right? But I also don't feel like, and maybe this is my ignorance because I don't live in the hood anymore, that the hood today is not nearly as bad as it was when I was growing up. There's way more social media. Like, we see so much of this stuff on TV and on Facebook, and where these people were caught because of people taking videos and all the information that's out there.
Yeah.
We didn't have that information.
Right.
When we were younger, we didn't have the access to the internet and camera phones.
Right.
Things happened and people got away with it. I feel like, and not that they don't get away with it now, but I feel like they get away with it less.
Right.
And I think that's just a sign of the times of what we're in now. And I think there are other things like legalizing marijuana in some states takes some of that trafficking trade out of the hood.
Yeah.
Because you, like, in states that's legal, like here in Las Vegas, you can just there are so many dispensaries here. It's not even funny. Like,
I think one of the biggest things that is always underrated and is always taken as a joke, but Xbox and PlayStation.
Yeah.
Kids now, they spend so much time
in the house
playing video games
that they're not out there.
You know
on
what
the
I mean?
Street. It's a good and a bad thing,
kids, right? Yeah, just the number of kids out in the street at any given time is a lot less than it was when we were growing up.
Right.
So those kids who are now in the house playing PlayStation
aren't subjected to.
They aren't, right. They don't have that
influence.
Constant peer pressure and influence. It's still an element of it there, but it's not as much.
Yeah.
Because I was outside every day. You know what I mean? I came home, boom, did my homework real quick, boom, I'm outside. You know,
couldn't wait to get outside because you didn't want to be in the house. Yeah.
Right. There was nothing to do in the house. You know what I mean? And the good TV shows didn't come on till 7, 8 o'clock at night anyway, right? So as soon as we got out of school, 2:30, I'm trying to be back out in the streets by 3:30. You know what I mean? And kick it with my homies, my friends, whatever. But in that time, you are subjected to the peer pressure of gangs, drugs, violence, everything else. Just living in the neighborhood, just regular old stuff.
My other complaint with Jim Jones is you're a grown-ass man. Why are you dealing with childish stuff? Right? Like, you should have grew up at some point in your life and been like, I'm done with all of that. Like he's got too much to lose to be involved with any of that, right? He has real money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's got houses, he's got cars, he's got jewelry.
Right.
I hope he's got some money saved for the future, right? Because he's getting old. Like, why are you even involved in that? Why are you putting yourself as a grown man in a situation to be involved with that?
Jim Jones is born in 76, so he's 43, 44.
Yep.
I mean, at this point, bro, why are you still there?
Right.
That's the question. Like, it's funny because I'm a big Jay-Z fan, and you hear the growth in Jay-Z and his music in the past couple albums that he's put out. and you think like this dude is a billionaire. What if he was still rapping about the same stuff that he was rapping about in Reasonable Doubt and
The Blueprint,
Volume 3 and all of that? It would kind of be like, man, what a waste of talent. Like what a joke this guy is, But this guy's rapping about investing, buying art, you know what I mean?
Right.
Kicking it with his wife and kids.
Which is it's crazy, right? Because young black kids, like maybe even young white kids, you just never thought about buying art. What is
Right,
why would
yeah.
you buy art? Like
Yeah.
it's crazy, right? Because art has value to people. Like we just never thought about growing up investing in things. I had a friend of mine today post on Facebook something very interesting. I have to find it, but he was like 27 years old when the internet came out in 91.
Mm-hmm.
He was 34 years old when Google was invented and 40 years old when Facebook was invented. And he's like, and his thing was that anybody who was born before the internet should be rich right now because we had an entire social technology boom where we could have invested and made millions. If you invested in Amazon when Amazon started, like $100 in Amazon stock back then is worth something like $370,000 or something like that for $100 investment. It's crazy.
Wow.
Like it's insane. Let's talk about reading headlines, right?
Yeah.
So yesterday, Congress voted 410-4 to make lynching a federal crime. There were 16 people who did not vote on this, which is mind-boggling to me that senators and stuff don't vote on. Like, how do you just not show up for a vote? But this is a very common thing that happens all the time. So, but the headline reads, 4 lawmakers vote against House bill to make lynching federal hate crime. And when you first read that headline, you're like, how could you dare vote against making lynching a federal hate crime?
Right.
Like that's so like you. What do you think? It makes you feel like, are these guys racist? Are they? It gives you all kinds of bad thoughts about these 4 guys, right? But then when you start listening to what these 4 guys have to say, the 4 guys were 3 Republicans, GOP members Ted Yoho of Florida, Louis Gohmert of Texas, Thomas Massie of Kentucky, which again, all southern states, states that have had race issues and other stuff like that. And then this guy named Justin Amash of Michigan. So, but when you start reading and you find out why they're not voting, it actually makes sense. Every one of them feels like by voting for this to become a federal crime, you let the state off the hook.
Yeah.
Because now the state doesn't have to prosecute this. They don't have to investigate it. They don't really have to do anything. It's be like, oh, this is a federal crime. We don't have anything to do with it. And one of the guys, I didn't pronounce his name right. It's Gohmert. I think it's Gohmert, Gohmert of Texas. His thing was, if you make it a federal crime, there's no capital punishment. You can't sentence anybody to death. There's no death penalty in federal crimes. He's like, so if we make it a federal thing, then they can't sentence him to death at the state level.
We can't kill this guy. Basically.
Right. All we can do is throw him in prison. Maybe the guy needs to die.
Right.
Or a woman needs to die.
Right.
But this is where we become society, right? We read the headline.
Right.
We don't actually read. 4 lawmakers voted against House bill to make lynching federal hate crime. Like, how could you not think that lynching was a federal hate crime? How could you just not? And you're outraged because of the headline. But then you read, and this is a Newsweek headline I'm reading in particular. There were CNN headlines. There were MSNBC headlines.
They were all roughly about the same, though. Yeah, they had the same connotation to them.
But when you get to the meat of it, it makes sense, right? Like, why is this?
Because I read it, and when I read the headline, my first thought is, who are these 4 people? Because I'm about to put them on blast. That was my entire thought was, you know what? These 4 people, everybody needs to know who these 4 people is because clearly they think lynching is okay. They don't think lynching should be worse than, you know what I mean? Should be prosecuted any differently than what it is.
Right.
And I read in the article, and you had mentioned something to me, and I'm looking for these 4 guys' names, and then you start to see they're like, well, they actually have some valid points here, you know? And the more I think about it, and now that I am no longer ignorant to the situation and realizing, because I've read the whole article and not just the headline, I actually agree with these guys. I actually think that knowing how federal crimes work and how this could be prosecuted, I think that it should stay at a state level, because now the state is forced to do a job. And if they do that job, a person can truly face the full extent of the law.
Right.
Or the state law, which is usually worse than federal law. As Gomert from Texas said, and if as long as it stays at state, they can get the death penalty. They can face capital punishment. They can face the maximum amount of punishment that we can give a person.
So by making this a federal hate crime, we're actually letting them off easier than what they could get in the state.
Right. We're basically just saying they're going to go to a federal prison, which in most cases is better than state prisons for the person in prison. They have a much easier time there, so to speak.
Right.
And they'll get to live there and play tennis and basketball and, you know, hang out with some of the white collar criminals, as opposed to being in the rundown, raggedy Texas prison where somebody might have spit in your food. You know, I mean, it's
where they actually might not have to kill themselves because somebody will kill them.
Somebody else might kill them, right? Yeah, the guard might be negotiated with to take an extra long smoke break. You know, but this is so typical today. We get so many articles and so many things come through that are just clickbait, and we don't read it. We just share it and we comment off of the headline. I know I've done it, you know, and then I go back and read it and I'm like, oh, that's not as bad as I thought it was. You know what I mean? Or that's
even worse.
Yeah, even worse than I thought it was.
Right,
yeah, you know. Right. And so,
but we're a headline reading society. And a few weeks ago, we were talking about all the Kobe Bryant stuff. We were talking about the difference between an opinion, an op-ed article, an opinion article, as opposed to actual news.
Right.
And the fact that it's so hard nowadays to be able to tell the difference between what's an opinion article and what's an actual news article, because so many people have their opinions out there and they post it on these websites and send it out, and everybody's like, oh, that's fact. And the reality is that we see a lot of people arguing their opinion like it's fact.
Right.
But there's difference between fact and opinion. Facts actually have some type of empirical proof that show that it's true.
Right.
An opinion is just an opinion based on whatever. You don't even have to have facts to base your opinion on, right? If I tell you a lie, now you base your opinion on the lie that I told you.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it becomes a lie on top of a lie on top of a lie. And then once you really find out what the truth is, a lot of times you're like, but that's not what I was originally told, because people don't go out and do their own research.
Right. And most people, they read so many of these lies, and a lot of the lies kind of bounce off of other lies, right?
Right.
So it's almost like if you have a math problem and 1 + 1 is 2, but if someone tells you 1 + 1 is 3, and then all of a sudden you're thinking 1 + 1 is 3, and now you get 30 other math problems, and you're doing them all based on the fact that 1 + 1 is 3, right? And now you're 15 problems in. For a lot of people, here's the problem. When they realize, oh, here's where you made your mistake. Back at step 1, 1 + 1 is 2, not 3. Now they've made so many decisions. They've done so many things in their life based off of this lie that now that you give them some truth, they'll still stick with the lie because it's more comfortable. It's harder to change. How can I save face when I've told everybody that 1 + 1 is 3?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, no, we have to do better. There's no better time than right now to just stop where you are, make the adjustment, fix your life. Just let's start doing better right now with, it's not even just politics. I mean, this thing is just spilling over into everything. Like I told somebody I was just telling you with when Kobe died and the lady, you know, there's this thing of like, did she say nigger or did she say naker? Right. And nobody knows 100%. It's a soundbite and everybody's kind of like one way or the other. I feel like the best anybody could be is about 80% positive on what she said, right? I had a guy argue with me and call me all kinds of coons and house nigga and all of this because I was under the belief that she said naker. Now, here's the thing. He's not even 100%, which he even admitted that she said nigger, but we got to do something about it. And there's no way I could defend this woman. I should be defending him. He's not even 100% that she said what he thinks he said, but he's going to 100% insult me and call me names because I'm thinking that she didn't say that. And I'm like, I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt, bro. You know?
Whatever happened to that, right? Remember we used to think that people were good until they proved they were bad?
Right.
Right. You know what I mean? Like now we just assume that everybody's bad until they prove that they're good.
And here's the thing. Whether she said nigger or naker or whatever, guess what? Here we are a month later. She still has a job. And all the people who hate her and think she said some racial slur or whatever, besides call me coon and everybody else who kind of sided with this woman and said give her the benefit of the doubt. So besides insult the people who are basically just in disagreement with you, what have you done? Right. Have you gone to MSNBC or whatever network she was on and tried to get her fired? Have you gone to talk to somebody?
Did you become Karen?
Exactly.
Karen, did you send a letter?
Did you talk to anybody? Did you do anything? No,
1,300 people
me.
Sent, right? And where was the Super Bowl? Fox this year? 1,300 people sent Fox a letter complaining about J-Lo. I mean, they put their money where their mouth is, right?
Right.
Like, it's a stupid complaint, but at least
they did it, right? So here's my thing. When all of these news things come up and we argue about them on Facebook and we argue about them in other social media, even in person, like, look who's divided and look who's still doing their thing. You know what I mean? Like this guy went off and he was like, "Oh, you're a coon. You know, I should have never sent you a friend request." And I was like, "Bro, unfriend me. I really don't care. Like, you know, it doesn't matter." But here's the thing: there are people who have lost like valuable relationships over stuff like that.
Me because I made a decision about something that you're unsure of.
Exactly. Right.
That sounds logical.
And so, right. So, and see, but this is what I'm saying. Like people spend so much time arguing about these things that nobody's going to do anything about, that really don't matter, don't even affect their lives, but they're insulting real people. They're breaking friendships with real people, right? Me and this guy at this moment, we didn't have a real working relationship. Like I never met this guy in person, right? But there's a point I never met you in person. Right. You know what I mean? Like we were friends on Facebook first. Yep. Right. And then we met later in person. Right. So people don't understand like the value of an actual working relationship with a real person versus just someone who's out in the media or someone who did something or someone who's a politician or something like that, where they're actually burning bridges and destroying possible beneficial relationships they could have with people over something that somebody might have possibly could have actually maybe said.
When I first became aware of you, and the reason I sent you a friend request on Facebook was we have a lot of mutual friends.
Yeah.
We have a lot of white mutual friends.
Yeah.
And it was always funny to me because whenever there was an issue about black people that they were unsure of, they would tag you in a post on Facebook and they would want the black perspective. And somehow you became the go-to black guy for like on Facebook in our circle of friends for like, is this okay? Like, it doesn't happen as much as it used to, partly because I think people just send us emails and things on Facebook like, here, talk about this now, and you know, because we have this show. But it used to be that like Steve was the go-to black guy in the community.
It's funny because now it happens in person. Like
it's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's moved like from Facebook to actual just in person. People come up to me. Perfect example. I'm not gonna say her name. Perfect example. This woman, she's from another country. We talk about her a lot.
Yeah. She's awesome. She's good people. She's really good people.
And she comes up to me and she's telling me that she saw the show or whatever, and she kind of pulls me to the side and she's like, you know, is it okay for me to call a black person Negro? and I could barely contain myself. But she has a legit question, like her being a white woman, she's from another country. And where she's from, it's similar to here, but only kind of, you know, black people or people of color can call each other, you know, Negro and different things like that. So she wanted to know, not necessarily could she use it, but would it be offensive? Because she didn't want to say it in any way, shape, or form if it might cause any kind of problem. Right. So she was trying to figure out, you know, what are the rules on this here? Because I'm not from America. I'm still barely know the language. You know what I mean? Right. And she's fine. And it's funny because I feel like her with that attitude, she'll go a lot farther than most people who are born and raised in this country. And instead of asking probably a black person or an Asian person or a Hispanic person or even a white person, something about their culture, they'll go and ask someone who's in their own culture about someone else's culture and what they should do.
Right.
You know, and that causes more of a problem than it actually fixes. I mean, if you got a question about black people, you should probably go ask a black person.
Right.
And granted, black people are not the Borg. There's not one answer for all of us, but you can kind of get right. You know what I mean? You could probably get a good ballpark explanation on what's okay and what's not.
I think like I try to have a similar theory to that woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I speak Spanish horribly,
Yeah.
but I always try to speak it when I run into Latino people, and they're always very gracious that I'm trying to, and they'll even correct me. Am I like, because the Spanish is hard, man. Like it's the past presence, like it's so hard. Which is great, but they always respect the fact that I make an attempt. Right. And I think that whenever somebody makes an attempt to identify with your culture or has the respect enough to ask about your culture, it's you have to respect that. Right. Here's again, make sure you're checking us out on the Negro Please on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. What else we at? Oh, the Negro Please on YouTube. Make sure you please subscribe to our page. This story. So Orlando, Florida, a 6-year-old girl has a temper tantrum in class, and the police are there, show up. They put the little girl in handcuffs, and then they put her in those plastic zip tie things, and they take her off, put her in the car, and arrest her. The cop who did this was fired. There's video of the little girl pleading and crying, "Please don't arrest me, please, please." There's a second officer there who it doesn't say like what happened to the second officer yet. So the second officer comes, who hasn't been identified, and responds like, "Little girl's crying. She says, I don't want to go to the police car." The second officer says, "You don't want to, you have to." And people are outraged that this cop put this 6-year-old girl in handcuffs. And I gotta be honest with you, I'm not as outraged as most people. I don't think this is as bad as most people do. Simply for this reason. I feel like if you scare the hell out of a kid when they're young about going to jail, then maybe they might act right in the future. I'm not a big fan of using these zip ties, the plastic zip ties, because especially on children, because they're incredibly tight. That's why they use them.
Yeah.
They do cut your wrist, like, because they're plastic. But I also understand, I don't know this for a fact, but like adult handcuffs may not fit around a child. And I don't know if they had to handcuff her. And the other thing, and then part of me not being so outraged because there are things I don't know. Like, I do know that they did fingerprint her and they made her go through the process. They took her picture, right? Putting a 6-year-old on the books and county is ridiculous, right? Like, there shouldn't be. But if you're just going to throw the stuff out, but you're showing this child this is what happens to people who don't act right, I guess I really don't have a problem with this to that extent.
My problem comes with the handcuffs. If apparently they said this girl was acting out to the point that they couldn't get her to stop, they couldn't get her to calm down, whatever. I'm not 100% sure on why they didn't call the parents or why the parents couldn't show up. Maybe they're at work, maybe they couldn't answer the phone. I don't know. Somehow the police get called. I could see a scare tactic of, okay, you keep misbehaving, now you have to go to jail.
Right.
And the cop just walking her out to the car and you have to get in the police car. I can see that. The handcuffs for me was crossing the line. I don't know to what extent I would mark this as abuse, but it's definitely, I think, for a 6-year-old, too traumatic of an experience at that point. Like at that point, you're crossing the line. You know what I mean? Like, this is already, okay, why are the police here? You know, it's a 6-year-old. This is kind of a little extreme, don't you think? But like you said, I could see an argument for, you know what? Maybe this would scare her to act right. You know what I mean? Like the fear that, like, hey, you can go to jail if you misbehave. If you do bad things, you'll go to jail, right?
Right.
I get that part. When you start, and to me, the zip ties, handcuffs, whatever, whichever ones they use, that's just crossing the line. I mean, and in essence, that's why the cop was fired. Apparently, his commander, he has to get approval from a commander
to arrest anybody under 12.
Right, 12 or under, they have to get approval. He didn't get that. And the handcuffs, I believe, is like the official sign of you're under arrest. Like you can't handcuff someone without them being under arrest, the way I understand it.
This cop has apparently...
What'd you say, Quan?
I said you can cuff somebody and detain them and not arrest them.
Okay, yeah. You can cuff them and detain them, but not take them away, right?
Right.
And so
I feel like if you're going to do the fingerprinting and the picture taking thing, like that all has to get ripped up and shredded right when the kid walks out. This is just a scare tactic, right? You cannot put a kid. Yeah. You cannot start a criminal record for a 6-year-old kid.
Right.
Apparently, this cop, Mr. Turner, he's made over 6,000 arrests, and he has arrested a 7-year-old before. So even though it's against department policy, it doesn't say whether or not he got the correct permission.
Right.
So, and I guess he thought she was a little bit older. He thought she was 8, and they were like, no, she's 6. Part of this, to me, goes also back to parenting, right?
Yeah.
Like, the parents are completely outraged by this, and we're going to sue, and blah, 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 blah. But if you had taught your kid how to act in the first place, would we be having this issue? And the problem here, it doesn't say, like, and again, because it's a 6-year-old, so, like, we don't know if there's any underlying issues here. Like, they're not going to tell us medical claims that this 6-year-old has... well, I think if she had autism or something like that, they should say that off fact, because that would completely change the situation, right?
Exactly.
Because now you're dealing with a child that you know has some issues,
right?
And as a police officer, this is whether it's an adult or a child, once you've been made aware of mental health issues or physical issues, then the way you treat that person should not be the same as you treat everybody else,
right?
Because now you have a better assessment of the situation, right?
Right.
You or me walking down the street, they don't know that we are or are not dangerous, right? They don't know.
Right.
So they're going to handle us when they approach us a certain way.
Right.
Fine. But once somebody makes you aware this child has autism or that person over there is schizophrenic, so their mind isn't with, you know what I mean?
Right.
Now we have a different issue, right? And I think you should deal with those people a different way. And people with not that people with mental health aren't dangerous and can be put police officers in very dangerous situations, because they can.
Right.
But at the same point, you have to understand that, like, this person is not acting on their own faculties.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So, but we don't have any information about Kaya that says that anything else was wrong, other than the fact that she's throwing a temper tantrum.
Yeah.
So I feel like there has to be some parent responsibility here, right? Because if I went to school, I love telling this story. My brother Charles, I mean, we laugh at it now. There was an instance, and he was much older. He was in 7th grade. And I don't remember why, but he was doing something stupid in school, and my dad got called to the school. But Charles was in class when my dad got to school.
Yeah.
Charles, my dad comes to class, and he's like, get over here. We're going out in the hall here. And Charles is going to act a fool and try and punk my dad while he's in class.
Yeah.
Charles got whooped in front of the entire class. Like, people love to tell this story and remind Charles that my dad whooped him in front of the entire class.
Right.
Nowadays, my dad would probably get arrested for this.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. I mean, because it wasn't like he was at no point was my father ever an abusive father. You know.
Right.
So. But he was a military guy, so we had rules and we stuck by the rules.
Right.
Otherwise, there were consequences. So I feel like that issue got handled in a home manner, right? With my brother.
Right.
Like, this 6-year-old, my kids didn't go to school and act up like this in class.
Right.
And my kids are grown now, and I only got ever called to school one time, and it was for my youngest son for something bad. And my youngest son, he was crying when I got in the classroom. Yeah. He didn't even do anything. He was with somebody else who did something.
Yeah.
And so they just pulled him aside. Like, he was crying before we got there, because like, when you raise kids who don't know how to act, like all the times I heard, oh my, when we be at a restaurant, oh my God, your kids act so good in public. Like,
yeah. How are they supposed to act?
how are they supposed to act? Right.
Yeah.
Like, what do you?
What are you expecting my kids to do?
Right.
That now you think they're so great.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
And so, but that's their home training, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, my kids act a fool at home. Like, when we're together, they're, especially now, they're grown. You just heard the conversation I had with my daughter on FaceTime.
Yeah.
Like, she's,
Yeah.
but when they were young, like, they know how to be respectful in public.
Right.
They know when they go to school that there's a way that you act in school.
But I think also here is, this is also a 6-year-old. So we're not talking about like a 10 or 11-year-old who's in like 5th, 6th grade, something like that, who's had kind of time to be taught these things. This could be this child's first time acting out.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like this could be a very well-trained 6-year-old who's having just a bad day. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, or something could have happened and she's the one who got caught. You know what I mean? I feel like it happened to me every time when I was in class. You know, somebody threw something in class. I threw it back. I got caught. You know what I mean? Like we cut through somebody's yard. Everybody jumped the fence. I got caught. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where this could be a kid who acts out all the time so much, and the parents have just never done anything that the school was like, you know what, we're calling the police.
Right.
This could also be a child who, like I said, she's just having a bad day. And this day she wants her mama. Like, somebody, please call my mom. And they're like, oh, we can't bring your mom. You know, she won't answer the phone. She starts yelling and screaming. And for whatever reason, they call the police, which I don't get that. Like, if this child's not endangering anybody, you know what I mean? Like, nobody's getting hurt. Like, why are you calling the police?
This officer, apparently the same day, Officer Turner, arrested a 6-year-old boy at another school. However, his superiors halted the arrest before it got to the full arrest process. They were like, no, you're not fingerprinting this kid. We're not doing that. So, like, there were misdemeanor charges brought up against the 6-year-old boy and the 6-year-old, and all the charges were dismissed, according to the state's attorney. Part of this is, and we talked about this last week when we talked about police making public, like, because they couldn't get, was this something? I always feel like you put people in bad situations, right? When you have the public outcry, like there might have been, and we weren't there. We only see the footage after the police officer got there.
Right.
We don't even see like what led him to putting the child in cuffs. We don't see the whole picture.
Right.
Like, maybe there was legitimate reason for the arrest and or at least the charges of misdemeanor battery, which is generally an assault type of charge where somebody hits somebody else or something like that.
Yeah.
Because of the public outcry on this, like, does he have to dismiss the charges? I don't think you should be charging 6-year-olds. Like, every 6-year-old that hits another 6-year-old should not be charged with battery. Like,
yeah, they're 6 years old. They don't they don't understand the consequences of that action. So a person, it's different if I do something I just didn't know it was illegal and I did it.
Right.
It's another thing if I bring bodily harm to somebody. Like, it doesn't matter if I knew it or not. Like, I hurt someone. I have to be, I have to face justice for that, right? Mm-hmm. But this is a 6-year-old. They can't understand that, this person pushed me, so I punched them in the face. They're 6. Like, that probably is not even like a thought. It's just a reaction. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're 6 years old. We can only expect so much of them. You know what I mean? As far as their behavior goes. I can't imagine this child did anything to warrant putting any adult in danger to the point that she needed to be put in handcuffs and put in the back of a police car.
You ever watch Adam Ruins Everything?
I've seen it a couple times.
There's an episode on there that talks about all of the fact that there are police officers in schools nowadays.
Right, yeah.
And the fact that, like, because there are police officers in schools, we're giving kids records.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a thing that's safe to make, like a safe. It's supposed to make you feel safer because there are police officers there. So they're supposed to, like, protect the school. But at the same time, they are arresting children at an alarming rate.
Yeah.
Things that should just be going to counseling for. Like, right. Like, you should, the two of you we're fighting. Now we both get arrested and now we have assault charges. at 15 years old.
Right.
Because we were fighting in school.
Right.
When we were growing up, you went to the principal's office.
Yeah. You got suspended for a couple days, or you got in school suspension or whatever.
Right.
Detention.
Nobody was getting a criminal record over a fight in school.
Yeah.
Unless there was some weapon involved or
it
got egregious.
Yeah. Somebody went out a window. You went, oh.
Oh. I
was like, you got thrown out a window?
So I get that there's like, there has to be some type of checks and balance system here, right?
Yeah.
We have to find a way to balance out the fact that kids are kids, right? And they're going to go through a growing process in life.
Yeah.
And that growing process shouldn't always be through the criminal justice system.
Right.
And this happens at a much higher rate in schools where there's a lot more Latinos, African Americans, poorer communities than it does in more affluent communities.
You can look at the poor communities as a simple hunger-based thing.
Right.
We all know what the term hangry means. You're hungry. You haven't eaten in a while. You get a little more agitated. Your patience is a lot less. You're a little more stressed out. You add that to just teenage years of going through puberty, people bullying you because you don't got the new Jordans on, or just add a whole gang of things in there with just these young people, and they're going to have 101 reasons to punch each other in the face.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And some of it is just, I remember, there's times I've gotten into a fight, and me and the person I fought, we were back friends a week later. You know what I mean? There was really no merit to our fight. We were mad. We punched each other, and then we called it a day.
Yep.
One of my best friends.
Or for the rest of the school year, you just walked by each other and gave each other that dirty look.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Look at you, stand there and stare at each other.
But most of the time, like, that's all it was. The only other extreme was like you were in a gang or sold dope or something, and somebody retaliated with a weapon or something like that. But for the most part, that's not what's happening in middle school and high school. These are kids just getting into meaningless fights about meaningless things. And when they're adults 10 years later, most of these things won't matter.
Right.
There should be some sort of punishment, but that punishment shouldn't come from the police. It should come from school.
Right.
You know what I mean? In a sense, in the form of suspension or some other discipline, separating the kids, making them work it out, talk it out, whatever it may be. But the police being involved in schools, especially kids this young, there is no positive side of this. You know what I mean?
Right.
The only positive maybe is this girl never has a criminal record, which could happen if this never happened. Right. You know what I mean? Like, so it's hard to find a positive in a situation like this. This cop was fired. He was fired faster than if he probably would have shot the girl, which is really sad. But it's just the way it is now. So shout out to at least his commander saying, hey, you dropped the ball. This kind of stuff won't be tolerated. And if nothing else, we have that. A cop did something wrong. He was punished for it.
But do you think it's a fireable offense? Of all the things that we've seen cops do, is this the most egregious thing that you're like, you know what, you're going to be fired for this?
I feel like this is more of I don't know how long, but definitely like a suspension.
Yeah, like,
you know what I mean? Like a suspension without pay. You don't do this again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For however long. But then if it becomes something that he's done or continually doing all the time, like, because it says like he's arrested younger kids before, or not. This is the youngest kid, but he's arrested kids under age of 12 before. So we don't know how many talks. You know what I mean? That him and his captain.
Yeah, it doesn't say if he has any any write-ups or anything like that.
Right.
All right, guys. Thank you again for joining us on Negro Please. I am Dallas Scott. He is Hollywood Huff. VegasHypeMedia.com. And, of course, you can get all the other episodes on YouTube.com. Log on to Facebook. Please like our Facebook page, The Negro Please. Subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'm Dallas Scott, Hollywood Huff. We'll be back next week with Negro Please.